Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? Here we go, 4 in a row, it's in the bag. Celtic are on track to smash our previous goal-scoring record as we look to secure a historic 9th treble to accompany that 55th league title. And this weekend, guys, you know this game, you know the score. It is us versus the baddies. We are going to Mordor, and in the video today, we're going to be putting on Brendan Rodgers as Tom Fords. We're going to be putting ourselves in the manager hot seat to select the team to preview the match and ultimately decide the tactics of how Celtic should approach this game at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We recently broke through 11,000 subscribers and we're well on our way to hitting our next target of 18,888, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. Get into the comment section on this one and let me know your score predictions and your man of the match shouts for this game as well. Of course, this is the #1 channel to leave your receipts on the internet, so when the game is all said and done, the final whistle goes, you can say you called it. Now, in case you missed it, earlier this week we spent a full episode on the channel previewing the opposition, and there's a lot of context in that video that we're going to reference in this one. So if you have missed it, feel free to check that out before or after. It's up to you guys, of course, but just in case you missed it, make sure to catch that one. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Doing the opposition analysis for this game was good fun, and I always like having a look at a team, you know, under the microscope that we don't normally spend much time following or paying attention to see the scores, how they've trapped in personnel, tactics, formation, that sort of thing. And where we started on the preview for the opposition this weekend was when Neil McCann took over as Rangers manager. And coincidentally enough, that happened basically right at the same time as we were eliminated from the Champions League by Bayern Munich. And really, for a lot of the protractors, for a lot of the naysayers out there, we've dropped off a cliff since that had happened. Our season was done. Players have checked out. Transfers are in the works to happen already. So, you know, that's where we're going to start our Celtic preview coming into the derby. And if we look at the tail of the tape, the very first game right after the Bayern Munich match, of course, is that 2-1 loss to Hibs. And it must be said that Hibs played a really good game in this one. You can check out the analysis we did after the fact. But they had a really good, very aggressive plan of attack for getting onto our midfield and creating some counter-attack opportunities. And then from there, we went on to beat Aberdeen 5-1. We get 2 goals for Dyson Maeda, 2 assists for Arnie Engles, a goal from McGregor, a goal from Jota, even Yang getting in on the action there from the bench as well. A great bounce-back performance. We follow that up with another game in a row that we score 5 in. And in and around this time as well, we have a return match with Hibs in the Cup where we beat them 2-0. But we put 5 past St Mirren. The Jeffrey Schlupp game, you might remember this one as, or maybe the Yang game where he comes off the bench to get 2 goals and an assist. Who could forget that? As well as a goal for Engles, Maeda getting on the action, as well as Nicholas Coon doing none too bad. Austin Trusty suffering an injury. Before we then have the derby match, the last time we played Rangers, which was right off the back of them playing Fenerbahce, and again we kind of referenced that in their side of the preview. We get a goal from Hitati, a goal from Dyson as we expect, but it was a smash and grab job from them right at the end, as you'll probably remember. But we started this midfield without Callum McGregor. We had Engles in the engine room and we had McKeown and Hitati playing off of him, so a bit of a different midfield dynamic, as well as that first time in the derby match we've played that different front three with Dyson through the middle. We followed that up with a 3-0 victory at home to Hearts, where again Maeda at the double, Jota's getting in on the act, and the assists from McGregor and Coon just make it look like an extra convincing team performance, including Mike Naroki coming in here to get a huge performance on that one, where it got fans actually championing him to come back in to the starting lineup into the back four. We then had that game that should have been the title decider that we lost away to St Johnstone, that sucker punch in the 4th minute or something. And yeah, we really huffed and puffed and nothing really came of it. We've obviously been on and beat St Johnstone 5-0 in the Cup since then, as well as beating Kilmarnock 5-1 in the league just before it. Hitati at the double, Maeda with that chip, Ralston off the bench, Carter Vickers from range. This game was an absolute spectacle, it really was. But we also had the return of Liam Scales and Greg Taylor into the fold. And it must be said, by the way, I meant to highlight it before, but we've not had Schmeichel for any game in this run-in post-derby since he's done his shoulder in. And Sinisalo, to be fair to him, he's got 2 clean sheets out of 4 games in the league, as well as the cup performances as well. So he's been building up a nice little kind of head of steam here coming into the derby match, which we'll talk about the goalkeepers, but I'm quite excited to see him perhaps get the shot before we had the 5-0 victory at the weekend there, which did seal the title away to Dundee United. Coon with the double, Ida with the double, and Jota kinda scored, but it was really an OG. But for these 7 games in the league, these 8 games in the league and the 2 cup games, we have scored 33 goals and only conceded 8. We have actually been in fantastic form, and like I said in the tip-off of this section, people would have you believe over this period here we've fell off a cliff and we've been shocking, but over 10 matches we've won 7 and lost 3. Now for Celtic, losing 3 games, especially domestically, is widely seen and accepted as being unacceptable, and I think we would all agree with that. But when that is you being scored 33 goals in 10 games, still winning 7, it's not a bad place to be, I'm sure you'll agree. And one of the main reasons for that has been the emergence of Daisen Sama, of Daisen Maeda, running away with the Golden Boot and probably the Player of the Year awards and accolades and all the rest of it. He's had a fantastic season, a really transformative year from a wide forward that could get goals and assists and stuff like that, but at least once or twice a game would have you pulling your hair out, like how have you not made the most of that? But since the departure of Kyogo, and long-standing subscribers on the channel will know that I do not think that's a coincidence. He has just really caught fire. He's just really went up a level. And the goals, the assists, the energy, the effort, and even his technique and delivery. As I said in the breakdown of the game at the weekend against Dundee United, the unsung hero of that game is Daisen Maeda's left foot, which is now actually becoming quite proficient at not just scoring goals, but actually crossing and getting some assists on the way as well. And Daisen has become a really talismanic forward for us, a real cult figure, a real everything forward. Like, there's not a box now he does not tick, and he is the main man for us in attack, and we know how he does in these matches historically. Captain Kalmak as well is probably having his best season of his career and is a credible shout for player of the season in the division. His last 5 he's been absolutely on fire, rating is 70 out of 100 on average. But across the season, Kalmak is very rarely not put in a top level performance. In the last 48 games, he's got 8 goals, 5 assists, which across the last 12 months previous is a pretty solid record for a box-to-box but deep-lying playmaking midfielder. And he's really had all strings to his bow when required. Now, of course, his better performances are when we win or when he's actually influencing the scoreline with goals and assists, of course. But for everyone that's been playing to see that McGregor, since the Bayern Munich match, for me especially, I don't know if I'd overly say he's went up a level, but he's kind of got a bit freer. You know, we see him penetrating through the middle of the pitch much more regularly, and he's been building on that early season goal scoring form that he had. And in the last couple of games, as you can see here, he's even adding in assists for it. And this is a situation where normally coming into these games, it's always about, from the opposition, can you keep McGregor quiet? And really, at the moment, he's going to be really hard to keep quiet if that's even possible. But with how effective he's now being in this season in the final third with goals and assists, which is much more than what he has been in this deeper role for any manager really, it makes him a much more credible threat, a much more credible match winner, alongside the ever divisive but much loved Rio Hitati as well, who, especially in the last 5 games, it feels like he is like at the peak of his powers. He's really, putting on a show. He really wants to stamp his name on the matches. If we look at his scores over the season, it's been quite a feast or famine situation here, hasn't it? Excuse the expression. But he's either doing something, scoring a world day, playing some blinding balls through, or he's maybe not actually statistically coming out with too much to be happy about in the match. Of course, we know he does so much off the ball, defensive coverage, etc. But the Kilmarnock match, he was on fire. The Dundee United match, I thought he would have got another 5 or 10 minutes on the game. And obviously in the cup as well, he's been absolutely on it. And he's had pretty good form in the derbies as well. So it feels like with the way Hitate's seasons went, where he's been alright in Europe, don't get me wrong, but he's not really had, like a meaningful big game performance, smashing Kilmarnock and all the rest of it's all well and good. 81 out of 100 against St Johnstone was his other highest score this year, as well as 80 out of 100 against Aberdeen. So he's missing some of those bigger performances in some of the bigger matches this year, and this is kind of last chance saloon outside of the cup final where he can do that. And I think Hitati alongside McGregor are really going to be coming into this game with a bit between the teeth to make something happen. Alistair Johnston, by the way, has been a bit of an unsung hero over the last little period of the season from right back. We know he's nailed on to play every game. We've seen Ralston actually getting a goal in recent times, but honestly, Alistair Johnston is all things to all men at right back at the moment. He can have, obviously, the Rangers game here where he actually did terrible. And there was a few games around there where, he wasn't actually doing too good. But overall, look at this. Defensively, super robust, super effective, and is getting into the final third and playing balls in the box very often. In the last year, he's had 10 assists and 4 goals, which I think he would be disappointed with, especially if we look at the tail of the tape for him. The last time he actually scored a goal, we're going way back, by the way. The assists are quite few and far between as well as we zoom out to see them here. may go all the way back to November, October to get a goal against Motherwell and Dundee off the bench on the spin. Before that, he scored an assist against Ross County right back at the beginning of the season. So it's been a while for AJ since he's actually hit the back of the net. He has missed some sitters as well, it must be said, but a very unsung hero, a rock at the back, and will be a big one for this game. Similarly to Carter Vickers, we all know he is the main centre-back. He is the man that the defence is built around. But outside, he has come in for some criticism this year in terms of his, passing ability, his variety of passing, how much he can travel with the ball, etc. But since that criticism has came out, like the last 3 games, including in the cup as well, he has been in his peak form, obviously scoring that worldie, the best goal of his life, you might even say, against Kilmarnock. But Carter Vickers just does not let people go past him. He has the rock at the back and he's in solid form. It's just all about the partnership, who's going to be playing alongside him. And I think it's going to be Scaldini. I think Scales is going to come back into the reckoning here, because Scales, for me, all season long, has been consistently one of our best centre-backs, man. He's so good at so many things, but he's not been able to really nail down that jersey this season with Austin Trusty coming in. It's been very much in and out. He also had that face injury as well, which derailed things, but his return to the team has coincided with some fantastic form and some really big output. Even going back some of these games, he is getting off the bench and stuff like that, so the lower ratings he's picked up actually kind of muddy the sample size that we've got here. But as you can see, when he plays, he is just mad effective. There's just no getting away from it. He's actually got a goal this year as well as an assist or two, and physically 1v1 dueling as well as progressing play. He's really, really good. He's obviously not going to win the Ballon d'Or or anything like that. You always need to kind of stop yourself short with a player like Scales. It does divide the fans so much, but the numbers don't lie. His volume of successful actions is through the roof. Quite similar to Greg Taylor in another way. Now, I think left back is one of the biggest question marks coming into this one. Taylor has recently got back into the squad, having been kind of in and out over the last little while since the arrival of Jeffrey Schlupp. I don't think Schlupp did that great in the derby, to be honest with you, but that might be something we call back to, similar with the Bayern Munich game. But Taylor, domestically, we know what we're getting from him, and his qualities and his kind of X factor that he adds into the team has been highlighted even more so in the last couple of games. And I think the injury to Jota makes it all the more easier to play Adam Ida and really give him another big derby match. Of course, he made his name here with the shot thing or whatever, we can cart back to that if you like. But with the way his seasons went, the price tag over his head, forever having to justify himself, this is a perfect game for him to just silence the remaining naysayers that are out there. Like I've said a few times on Adam Ida, since the Aston Villa goals, he's fine for me. We know he can score in the derby, and if he can score against a team like that in the Champions League, and Villa wanted those points, they were much more desperate than us in that final game for the win there. So I've been really happy with Ida as an overall addition to the squad, forgetting about transfer fees because who really cares anymore at this point. And I think he's had his best period in the team here when Kyogo's left. I don't think that's a coincidence. Partly in his case, nothing to do with anything conspiracy theory-esque that we've had with Dyson and Kyogo, but with Ida it's just knowing I'm going to get 80, 90 minutes. I know I'm going to start the next game as well. Obviously, Dyson Maeda coming in through as a centre forward is again kind of muddied that water for him. I think that confident mindset of I'm playing and getting ready for the game and prepping for it, and then when you're on the pitch having that freedom to deliver because you're not worried about the bench taking you out of the game, I think that's when we get the best out of him. And he comes on in this game for Jota, unexpected, and I thought he was great. And I think he'll be licking his lips now at this situation of it's basically him that's going to start up front, isn't it? Arne Engles over this period as well has came in for some, maybe not quite to the same scrutiny as Ida, but he does come in for a lot of scrutiny down to the price tag. Now, the problem with Engles is if he's not actually hitting the back of the net and slaying teams open with passes, he's not overly contributing too much. But I do think the big matches is when we see the best of Arne Engles, because he is a real box-to-box, line-to-line midfielder. And it's the games where he's tested more in that kind of setting is where we get the most out of him. He's had some of those big performances and the big wins, of course, as we see here with Dundee, Ross County and one or two others. But again, in a similar way to Hitati, the big games, he's not really wrote his name all over it. He's got Man of the Match awards, he's done great, I'm really happy with him overall. But he's missing a kind of headline marquee performance of won us that big game, and it wasn't just the assists against Aberdeen or this kind of thing. And his form has not been terrible, but it's very much again hot or cold, isn't it? Nicholas Coon, again, maybe in the same category as Adam Ida and Engles in that way of coming in for some scrutiny recently. And I think for the most part, considering his minutes and he has lost a bit of form since the Bayern Munich match where he scored, could have been more than that, obviously, as we know, but he's still been decent enough. He's still getting some assists in there. He's obviously got the 2 goals back against Dundee United to put him back into contention ahead of the derby after only having 45 minutes in the last one. But I think, again, Coon is a guy that is quite patchy, and I think for attacking wingers, wide forwards, however you want to think of them as, that's kind of normal. But what you're really hoping is either the streaks can be long, like if we look at the beginning of the season here, it was almost like every game he was doing something and being involved in, or if it's not that frequent, when he hits big, So we've had kind of 2 streaks kind of bundled on top of each other here in the first half of the season with Coon, and then since then, there's been a wee burst here. And then this is probably where people are saying he's going off the boil a little bit. And then we're getting into a second little burst now all of a sudden of, crossing the finish line and pushing the boat with him. Because again, like Rodgers has said, and this is something I think we all need to pay some extra mind to, is Nicholas Coon has never played this amount of games, this amount of meaningful games before in a season before, ever in his career. Same with Arne Engles. So there's a wee bit of give you. I think you have to give these guys cutting their teeth. Not quite the same with a goalkeeper, but Sinisalo has come in for the injured Kasper Schmeichel and done really good. Now, I'm not too sure. We'll need to wait until a little bit closer towards the game if we get any breaking news. But I'm not too sure Schmeichel's ready for this. We'll see, because he was back in training really quickly, and there was some fears that he might not be back this season. That was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I do think it's knife edge. If we see Schmeichel diving about in training, I think he'll come back in. But like we've mentioned on the channel before, if Sinisalo is the heir to the Schmeichel throne, this is the type of exposure he needs to get. High value cup matches, high value league matches, and so far with the 4 games he's played in the league, I think he's done well enough. I would have loved him to get a clean sheet against Kelly, and St Johnson for that matter, but he's looked commanding. One thing I would say about Sinisalo is he really loves inviting pressure onto himself. He passes it right at the last minute. It'd be interesting to see if he can get a Rangers player booked on that at the weekend, but let's hope it doesn't lead to an error. But Big Kasper has been a difference maker this year. He is very much missed, but I think that's a huge credit to how decent Sinisalo's been in those 4 games where it's not been that harshly felt, because Schmeichel has been the big green clean sheet machine for club and country. He's been on an absolute heater this season. He's done absolutely fantastic. And, Joe Hart was great for us, but Joe Hart was not this impressive for clean sheets and for goalkeeping. I think Schmeichel and Hart both bring that kind of leader quality to the changing room, to the pitch. But Schmeichel really does give us a bit more high-end goalkeeping. And that has been a big factor of our early season success. So I think Schmeichel coming back, if he is fit, is a no-brainer, and I would be happy to see him come back for this game. But equally on squad management and player development, I've got no issues with Sinisalo playing this one. So that brings us to the tactics board, and like I say, the goalkeeper one is it's just, is Schmeichel available or not? And let's just see throughout the passage of the week, once we get training pictures, maybe some interviews with the manager and match preview stuff officially from the media outlets coming, we might get a bit of a tell on that. But I think we're going to assume it's going to be Sinisalo in goals. Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnson, of course, picked himself in defence. Now, we did kind of throw this out here when we did the Rangers side of the preview, as their main route to goal is going to be these wide pockets. We've seen them do it against us already, and we've seen any team that has a similar kind of formation or quality in attack, and where the qualities are in terms of pace and incision, is they like to get into these pockets here in and behind the fullbacks and make really difficult 1v1s for the centre backs as well, with a kind of arrowhead forward available with whatever wide man is kind of affecting the play, as it were. And as we know from previewing Rangers, they are not going to want possession in this game. They are going to give us a lot of possession. The more possession we have, the more likely Rangers are to win, is kind of the way statistics go. If Rangers get over 60% possession, they are losing for the most part. And so I think this is going to be a big factor. They are going to want this space to play into in and behind the defence once we get close to the halfway line and we're looking to play. So I think between Scales and Trusty, it becomes really difficult, because as much as Scales, like shoulder to shoulder with Dessers, he's got to handle him no problem, but recovering and running into pace against Cherny, Hadji, Igaman, or somebody else that might play, I forget who it is now, you do worry that Scales could be picked on in this one. And I do think like the beautiful combination we've seen over the last couple of games of Scales and Taylor really does just play into that exploitation, and we have been done with that before. So I do worry, like if we go Scales and Taylor's going to help us make the midfield, the centre of the pitch, much more crowded, and we might get a bit more joy in here having Taylor in and around this, because they've stifled us in the centre ground in some of these other games that we've not got a positive result in, and Taylor can be the guy that gives you that. But like we've seen with Taylor in these games as well, against Czerny in those wide areas, or even, you know, other sequences of play that could happen, Taylor can be, along with Scales, the ones that get kind of picked on, focused on, and then there's just errors that can come from that. So I think playing both of them together is actually a risky combination, let's say, because Austin Trusty does have that difference in recovery pace from Scales, like we've seen all the way through the season, as well as against high value opposition, and he does have a willingness to try what Scales has been doing. He's obviously not been that great at it this season so far, and in one or two cases at set pieces he's been a bit weaker. And if they are set piece, Rangers are a big set piece team again, it kind of balances the scales towards Scaldini perhaps. But I think centre back is a really tough one. It depends on how much respect Rodgers wants to give the opposition, and from the way he's handled these games, he really has went into them with, screw what they're trying to do, we're going to do what we're doing and they won't be able to stop us. And if Rodgers keeps with that mindset coming into it, it's only going to be Liam Scales, because although they will have that ability to penetrate with like pace and recovery runs and stuff like that, I think Scales just physically, if he's close to people, they're not going to get away from him, and set pieces, which are crucial against them, we've seen it so many times, Scales is a difference maker. So it then puts a bit more focus on that type of thing at left back. Now I actually think Jeffrey Schlupp is the most likely to start alongside Liam Scales in at left back, and conversely I think if he did start with Trusty, he would give us Taylor to flood the midfield with, and then you get Trusty's kind of pace to kind of cover a bit more ground. But I think the combination is going to be Scales and Schlupp, because I do think Schlupp 1v1 with Czerny, like Czerny has got a great chance of just being snuffed out of the game, and he is clearly like their best quality attacking player, and if he can be snuffed out of the game by Jeffrey Schluppdog here, Diamande and Raskin are going to ask them to get on the ball a lot, and really, like, I'm not too worried about that with our midfield, to be quite honest with you, which kind of does pick itself. Up front, there is maybe a bit of a question for who starts where. Could Forrest start on the right or on the left, and Dyson plays through the middle, or something like that? Yeah, he certainly could. I really don't think it's likely, but with Coon looking so good and with his 2 goals against Dundee United, and like we even seen there in the last 10 games, he's not exactly been rancid. Obviously on the eye test we've seen he's not been quite firing on all cylinders, but he's still been somewhat effective for the most part. A highly motivated and very physical Adam Ida, who's going to enjoy playing against this back three in proper. We know Adam Ida's got his number, he'll be able to get a lot of change out of him if Suter is forced to play on the wide of the three, as well as in Silla. They're going to double up here, of course, with these types of guys, but I just feel that our wide players are going to be pretty good for it, and that this shape with no Jota really does pick itself. I don't think there's a strong argument to play any other way for the most part, especially with them if they do opt for Kelly to be the goalkeeper as well as Butland, because you know they're going to try and play out from the back as well. And if they do that, you just know we are very well rehearsed at playing out in these types of situations and pressing as a unit and making the most of mistakes, which will normally be Rangers' main currency for getting goals, is just mistakes and chaos and errors and a bit of fortune. If they're playing Kelly, they don't want to give possession away that much, although they realise they're probably going to allow us to dominate the ball, but they're going to try and slickly play into space quickly if they can. And I think even when you look at this type of shape, if they do play out from the back, on a couple of occasions, I'm not saying they'll do it all game, but it'll be dogmatic. You know, it's going to be really hard for them to get out. And like I said when I was kind of previewing the players, I think so many of them have got a real point to prove in this game. Whether it even be Scales, Sinisalo, some of these kind of lesser forgotten stories in terms of just squad players for the most part. Schlupp or Taylor, like, I don't think Schlupp's got much of a point to prove, but I think this would be his kind of final hurrah in the team to do something really meaningful and say, like, I was a successful Celtic player. He's also going to get the medals and he's done alright for us, but a big derby performance, if he's called upon, is what he needs to kind of seal his little mini legacy that he's getting here. McGregor in a great season, Engles with a big price tag to shake off, Hitati trying to be the match winner, and all the front three have got that, I'm scoring goals, I need to score goals, and I'm going to do everything I can to make the team win kind of attitude and vibe around them at the moment. And with Rangers missing some of their better defenders playing this type of shape, and if they line up the way I suspect as well, we just need to be really mindful of when we're trying to play out from the back for the most part, because one thing they've done a good job of, same thing we've seen with Hibs, and like a few teams in Scotland have done quite well with it, and Neil McCann has done a good job of adapting Rangers to play it in a similar way. But when we are trying to play out from the back, they are quite happy to just overload with the Diamande maybe the Hefty or the Tavernier, to just give them that fourth man, maybe even that fifth man, depending on how deep the ball is and who goes deep to get it, to just make it that extra difficulty to actually play out for. And if they can turn over the ball here when we are spreading players out, make a couple of passes, get a shot away, buy themselves a corner or a free kick, that's going to be the number one thing that they can do to like get the crowd up and get them feeling like they're on level with us, is that kind of disruptor, that chaos ball, as it were. But this is playing with fire, because as long as we keep our discipline and we're well positioned, Dyson and Coon with space to run into, with Ida as the arrowhead and support here, like we could really take them apart on a number of occasions. And if Kelly is the goalkeeper, like we have battered so many goals against him when he was at Motherwell, I've not got as much worry for that. If it's Butland, like to be fair to Butland, he can save a couple of shots. He's not a terrible goalkeeper, just not getting an England team anytime soon, is he? But if the teams are set up like this, I think this is going to be a good Celtic win. Can we come out of Mordor with a clean sheet? I think it's very possible, by the way, because I don't think Rangers have got a super threatening attack. I think their attack and their kind of route to goal, for the most part, is quite avoidable if we are really on our game and produce like a high level performance. The last derby match, I said in the preview, this should be Champions League versus Europa League, and it didn't really work out like that. It was much more of a Europa League game. This time, it has to be Champions League versus Europa League elimination. We get eliminated as well, so I don't even know why that's up a dig, but there you go. And that's going to be about playing in tight spaces, playing under pressure, making good decisions, and in terms of the squad and the manager, winning both halves of the game. You know, making sure in the first half we're doing the right things, we're getting control of the match with an early enough goal or two, and then in the second half, although there's no like Jota and we're not starting with Coon on the bench, there's not mad reinforcements, McKeown, Forrest are very effective from the bench. Bernardo, as we know, can be effective at this level without being like a super offensive player. And then behind that, you know, maybe there's a wee wild card Brendan's got up his sleeve. Johnny Kenny, you never know. But I think, yeah, it's going to be a game of two halves here. I would like to think we can get the clean sheet. I would love the clean sheet for the whole defence department, whoever does play, in particular Sinisalo. And, you know, I could see Ida scoring here. I could see Dyson getting a goal, Hitati. And I think there's something in the team somewhere for Engles and McGregor. So I'm going to go for Celtic to win this 4-0. I'd be really happy if there was a bit more to it. And I think, like, in terms of, you know, who's going to write their name on this fixture, I think it's got to be one of the goal scorers. Either Adam Ida is going to be on fire and boss these guys around and get his head, shoulder, knees and toes on any of the balls that come into the box, or it's going to be either Dyson Sama or Rio that really just light the place up. So I'm kind of torn between those three. It'll really depend how the match shakes out. I think away from home, Hitati could be the difference maker here. I'm just getting like, we've flashback, deja vu, different types of players, but like Rogic just controlling through the middle. That's one of the great things about Big Tam is, you know, like the middle of the pitch was his. Like no one could get near him. Just such a big guy, so powerful, but elegant as well. And Hitati's got a lot of that elegance and a lot of that drive. And I think he's going to want to, you know, really do a number on Raskin and Diamande and really like, I'm better than you two punks kind of vibe. So I'll maybe go for Hitati to be the headline maker. Celtic to win this by 4-0. On screen and now some other stuff that we've made on the channel that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you did enjoy this one, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video here today. And don't forget to jump into the comment section and let me know your score predictions and your man of the match shouts, who's going to write the headlines on the day. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope we all get to enjoy the game, of course. Hail, hail, and moan the hoops.